Today, Specialized is launching their updated quintessential trail bike. This is the Stumpjumper 15, and they've tried to improve its adaptability as well as its overall performance. So stay tuned to learn a little bit about it and how it's been performing so far in this first ride report on loamwolf.com. Let's go. For this first ride report, we're just going to focus on what I reckon are the key details of the new Specialized Stumpjumper. If you do want to learn more, then head to the website in the description below, where I'll really cover all the nitty-gritty details, because there's a lot to cover on this bike. But for now, for the new Stumpjumper 15, Specialized has made this a 145mm travel with a 150mm fork as standard and a pair of 29-inch wheels. But they built in a huge amount of adjustability. There's no longer a separate Stumpjumper and Stumpjumper Evo model. Instead, they've just focused on making one model that will suit many different riders and building in a ton of adjustability, from the adjustable head tube angle through the headset cups to a high and low bottom bracket setting, the ability to fit a mixed wheel setup with a smaller 27.5-inch wheel in the back thanks to a new link. If you replace that, you can run a smaller rear wheel, and also there is the really the biggest talking point is their brand new Genie Shock, developed with Fox, with a new technology inside it that really just opens up the tuning possibilities of this bike to another new level. So there's a regular air chamber inside there, and then a further large volume that is connected to it as standard. So from 0 up until 70% of the travel, you get a really large air volume inside there, giving you a really nice linear air spring curve. That should deliver a really nice and supple, sensitive feeling to that rear end. But instead of it being a linear air spring all the way through the travel, at the 70% mark, the shock closes off the large air volume and just relies on a smaller air volume. So for the last 30%, it has a pronounced ramp up to the end of the stroke. This means that you should not only get some more support in that sort of mid to end stroke of the travel, but also it keeps you off the bottom out bumper with a much reduced air volume, leading to a significant ramp up at the end of the stroke. You can either tune the large main air spring and reduce the overall large volume that you feel through that 0 to 70% and really deliver a completely different spring curve to deliver either a really supple feeling or a more supportive feeling. And then you can also add further volume reducers or remove them to that last 30% of the stroke effectively, and increase or decrease the amount of bottom out resistance. So it's a really nice technology. We've been playing around with it a lot here, and it's really impressive the amount of change that you can get and really change the character of the bike overall just from that rear shock. For the Stumpjumper 15, there'll be the standard carbon fiber frame that we've been testing, as well as an S-Works spec with a slightly lighter weight overall frame, and in a range of different builds. We don't currently have pricing information to hand, so we will be sure to include it in the graphic here once we receive that. But yeah, for now, you can certainly say that there's going to be some really top-tier bikes, both in terms of their components and the price tag, as well as some slightly more affordable offerings. Specialized is also going to offer a coil-equipped version as standard, and this will be shipped with a 160mm travel 38mm stanchion fork, as opposed to the 150 36mm stanchion fork that I've been testing here. And it'll also come with a mixed wheel option as standard to really cater to the more gravity-oriented riders. Taking a look at the geometry of the bike, and if you take the most kind of middle of the road, do it all, everything geometry that the bike will ship in, with the high bottom bracket and the neutral headset setting with a pair of 29-inch wheels, then Specialized hasn't done anything crazy with the geometry on the new Stumpjumper 15. Of course, it is highly adjustable. So the head tube angle of stock is 64.5 degrees, but when you combine that with the ability to adjust the bottom bracket height and the head tube angle through that headset, you can go anywhere from that 64.5 all the way to 63 degrees in the slackest position, and even slacker still if you go for 160mm fork up front potentially, and then rein that back in to more like 65.5 degrees if you are looking for a more agile do-it-all machine. And the bottom bracket height as standard is super low at 337mm, and then you can drop that even further with a low bottom bracket and slackening out the head tube, giving you a really nicely integrated ride, and that's really been one of the standouts on this bike so far. But of course, you do lead to the potential to have issues with pedal striking, so do look at how you're going to be riding it, where you're going to be riding it, and make sure that's not going to be a problem for you. Other geometry numbers are a 77-degree effective seat tube angle, which is slightly steeper than the previous generation, a nice and short 435mm chainstay length, and reaches which are still done size specifically, so you get S1 through to S6 sizes on this bike, with the S4 that I've been testing coming in at 475mm, which is paired with nice and high stack heights, with this S4 coming in at 640mm. It's important to note that sizes S1 and S2 are only available as a mixed wheel configuration with that smaller 27.5-inch wheel, giving smaller riders more clearance on the descents. But yeah, important to make sure that you're not expecting to be able to fit a 29er to this bike if you're in the S1 or S2 camp, because it will not work. Overall, the geometry is certainly well-rounded for a trail bike, highly adjustable, which is really nice to see. And as we'll talk about in the next section, it's been an absolute pleasure on the trail. So then, let's get on to the thing that really matters the most. How does the new Specialized Stumpjumper 15 ride? We've had a fantastic couple of days testing this new bike on the trails of Mount Zuhalem in Vancouver Island in Canada, and I have had an absolutely fantastic time. Of course, helped by some incredibly fun trails, but the bike has certainly not held that fun back at all. If anything, it has really enhanced it, and this is a bike that I can absolutely vouch as being something that is really pushed the Stumpjumper performance to the next level, both in terms of the tunability and just the overall performance and capability of the bike, and it's been a serious amount of fun. Starting off, we were given the bike to ride in the stock configuration, and that's where I left it for most of the first day of testing. During this time, we just logged a ton of laps just to get the suspension pressures dialed, get really a good feel for the bike. Of course, log some nice POV footage riding the trails here, and during that time it was just really giving me a well-rounded overall nature in terms of its overall performance and feel on the trail. It does certainly have a standout in terms of its short rear end. That makes a real difference to its performance on the way down the hill, and really just encourages you to pop and play about on the really nice kind of bike parky style features here. But it does somehow manage that short chainstay length on the way up the hill as well. The seat tube angle is not super steep. It can, in fact, because the actual angle is quite slack, it can put taller riders with longer legs, such as myself, quite far off towards the back of the bike if you're not careful. But by slamming the seat forward in the rails, and yeah, it quickly got me into a comfortable position. It's definitely steeper than the previous generation was, and it put me in a comfortable place on the bike. But definitely something to watch out for if you're a rider who's looking to climb the absolute steepest terrain all the time, and you're looking for a kind of new school, super steep seat tube angle, super kind of far over the bottom bracket feeling, then this might not give you that. But for every other rider, the overall position is comfortable, offers a nice balance, and so far it's given me absolutely nothing to complain about. We've been doing plenty of climbing here, and some of it in quite steep and technical portions of trail, and it's definitely not held me back at all on the way up. Its overall pedaling platform is solid, it's comfortable, it's not super firm, but of course you've got the lockout lever, which definitely helps to add some efficiency back in. But it's by no means a slouch, and the overall weight is nice and low, it's nice and snappy, and definitely a comfortable all-around trail bike. Then for day two, we played about with the suspension a lot more. We did like a bracketing process where we started off in the stock configuration. We then went to the maximum number of air volume spacers in the larger positive air chamber to give a much more progressive air spring curve, increased force, increased support overall, which definitely quickly made it feel like a much more kind of sporty and just firm feeling ride. And then we went all the way to the other extreme and took all the volume reducers out to give the most supple off the top feel, which is where I ended up preferring the bike, because there was still plenty of platform to play with, plenty of progression in that suspension to keep you off the bottom out bumper, and I was just really enjoying the extra traction and comfort for the slippery wet trails here in BC. I then also played with the bottom bracket height adjustment and the head tube angle. I ended up turning this bike essentially from the stock Stumpjumper into a Stumpjumper Evo of sorts. Went for the full slack head tube and the low BB, and it really turned it into a ride that I was incredibly confident on, pushing hard, and really it just made it for such a fun time. And there was at no point did this bike feel like I was getting it out of its depth, which for a 145mm rear travel is pretty impressive, and a lot of that has got to be down to that new Genie Shock tech, which keeps you off the bottom out bumper but without making the whole bike feel really firm and set up for the hucking. Instead you get a well-mannered kind of suspension performance for the day-to-day kind of stuff, but then when you do decide to send it, you're not just going to blow through the travel and hit the bottom out bumper and have a bad time because of that extra progression at the end of the stroke. And so far I can really see the benefits of this. Initially I wasn't, you know, kind of hit by that technology as a standout before I knew about it, but the more that I started to ride it, the more I realized, shit, I haven't actually bottomed out this thing yet. And I'd certainly been trying, as you'll see in the POV footage. It's been some wild riding, and we've certainly been putting this Stumpjumper 15 to the test. Overall, the first couple of rides have definitely given the impression that Specialized have pushed the capabilities of the new Stumpjumper to another height, both in terms of its overall adjustability, because you can take this from a very agile, firm feeling, more cross-country trail bike feeling bike, all the way to a maybe even more capable bike than the old Stumpjumper Evo was, just for a few quick, easy to do adjustments. And in my eyes, that's pretty damn impressive. So far I've been incredibly stoked on this bike, and I'm excited to keep on riding it for a long-term review in the coming months. Hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this first ride report on the new Specialized Stumpjumper 15. It's certainly been a video that I've been enjoying making, and the bike that I've been enjoying riding a lot. If you have enjoyed it, then give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know your thoughts on this bike. Do you think they've done the right thing by just making this the Stumpjumper and no Evo anymore? Let us know below, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out the long-term review of this coming in the coming months, as well as more awesome content on awesome bikes like the Specialized Stumpjumper 15. Thank you for watching. Catch you out on the trails. So even though they have you're okay. Hiya. Hey. Hi. Hi. Hiya. Hey. Have a great day.
You too.